Today's training series is called Putting the D in Defense.
You're from Stewartville, Minnesota. Been playing well, 12 kills against Purdue last time out. Setting the middle, and Robin's got a lot on that one for Louisville.
So now let's look at what I call back row defense. Back row defense is defense involving the setter, who is a back row player. We have the libero, who's lined up on the left side of the floor on her team's side, behind the attack line. We have our back row setter, who is lined up along the right sideline, behind the attack line on her team's side of the court.
Bear now with 5 kills, hitting 400. We showed you her numbers earlier, down this year, but they are up in this rivalry game against Kentucky here tonight. Good defense again, this time by Looper.
That would have been a thumb-up swing down the line.
Grome turns for it. Lamb gets a rip, and there's the block for Louisville.
In this play, we're going to talk about front row defense. The difference between front row defense and back row defense is that the front row defense involves our front row setter. Again, we have our libero, who is lined up behind the attack line on the left side of the court near the left sideline, on her team's side of the court. And we have our front row setter. Notice that this time our setter is in front of the attack line. She is near the right side of the floor, and she will serve as the right side blocker.
Great balance for Louisville. Looper with 6 kills, DeBeer with 6, Robbins has 6, Maldonado Diaz with 5, Kong with 5, really spreading the wealth. DeBeer calls for it. Looper for Kong. Grome for delay.
Some good block touches here by Louisville's block to make it easy on the defense.
Maldonado Diaz gets it in.
In this particular play, Louisville is serving. They're in rotation 2, which means our setter is the middle back. Kentucky, who is the receiving team in this particular play, is in rotation 4. That means that our setter is the left front. As we can see in normal base defense, our libero will defend from the left sideline of the floor on her team's side of the court. Our back row setter in base defense for most teams defends from the right sideline behind the attack line on her team's side of the court. All teams want the setter to avoid the first hit on their offense. Following the block touch by Louisville, the ball goes back to Kentucky for Kentucky to begin their offense again. And as we can see, while Kentucky begins their offense, Louisville goes back to their base defense. This time we have a dig by the back row player for Louisville, who wants their setter to avoid the first hit on offense, which she does. But however, the ball goes across to the front row player for the go attack. Again, Louisville will go back to their base offense as the setter is setting the ball for this slide attack. A ball is hit. We have a block touch. The libero, the back row player rather, contacts the ball, making the setter available for the second hit. Now Kentucky is in their base defense as the setter gets ready to set the ball. So we have our front row setter, who is the right side blocker, and our libero, who is along the left sideline behind the attack line. And as I had just mentioned, we have our libero defending from the left sideline behind the attack line. Our front row setter is the right side blocker. Now you can see if she ends up in blocking action, this is going to be challenging for our setter to avoid the first hit following any potential block touches. We have a go attack. Louisville goes at base defense. The libero gets hit one, making our setter available for the second hit. We have a go attack. We have a block touch and a dig by our front row player for Louisville. As Kentucky goes back to their base front row defense, the setter for Louisville is available for the second hit, which is the intent for all defense to make the setters available for second hits in system. Following the dig by Kentucky, our front row setter is available for the second hit for the set. We have a slide attack. Now our setter has to defend hit one, so she's unavailable to set the ball for hit two. Following the attack and the block touch, the front row setter for Kentucky has to defend hit one, so the libero must dig past hit two for this go attack. Now our back row player digs the ball for Louisville, making our back row setter available for the second hit. Following the attack, we have a dig by our back row player, making our front row setter available for the second hit. Following the attack by Kentucky, our libero digs the ball for Louisville, making our back row setter available for the second hit. Re-emphasizing that the defense wants setters to avoid any potential hit ones. Defending go attacks.
Here would have gotten in a 5-1.
Now we're going to look at a play with attacks from the left sideline and attacks that occur from the left sideline, especially the most common attack in volleyball called a go attack.
Good serve by Looper. Louisville again strong at the net. Kentucky ready.
Here would have gotten in a 5-1.
Good serve by Looper. Louisville again strong at the net.
See Louisville on defense getting ready to defend the go attack. Defenses in volleyball are reminiscent of basketball zone defenses such as the 2-3 zone, the 3-2 zone, or 1-3-1 zone. In zone defenses in basketball, players are defending the area. First, we have the remaining front row player who is not involved in blocking action, trying to defend this area, including the left sideline. Our libero, who is also defending the left sideline as well as the middle of the court. Liberos are often asked to cover a ton of ground and are usually your best defensive players. Our back row setter, who is covering the area behind the potential blockers in this case, as well as the attack line and perhaps the middle of the floor. The remaining back row player covers the middle area along with the libero and any areas behind the libero and our back row setter.
Kentucky ready.
Defending red attacks.
Floats it. Grome back to Wilson.
The red attack is kind of the opposite of the go attack. It will occur from the right sideline area on the team side of the court. Again, let's look at Louisville on defense as they defend this potential red attack by Kentucky. Remember, just think of defenses defending attacks reminiscent to basketball zone defenses. You have our remaining front row player who normally would be a little deeper to cover that sideline area. You have our libero who covers the left sideline and who is asked to cover a ton of ground in the middle of the floor as well as near the attack line. You have our back row setter who is in line shot for this particular red attack, who is also asked to cover the right sideline area near the attack line. And you have the remaining back row player who covers the area that she's standing in as well as anything behind the back row setter and the libero. Defending slide attacks.
Ultima dug out.
Remember, we're looking at volleyball defenses just prior to the attack and envisioning the basketball zone defense. Here's our remaining front row player covering all area near the right side line in front of the attack line. Our libero covering the left side line behind the attack line and most of the area in the middle in front and just behind the attack line. Our back row setter stepping up to defend this potential slot attack is going to assist with covering the middle of the court near the attack line. And our remaining back row player covering any area behind our libero and our back row setter. Defending middle attacks.
You're from Stewartville, Minnesota. Been playing well, 12 kills against Purdue last time out. Setting the middle, and Robin's got a lot on that one for Louisville.
Defending middle attacks are probably the most difficult defense that a volleyball team can have for a couple of reasons. One, the set followed by the attack is usually very quick, and you only have one blocker, in most cases defending attack, as opposed to two or maybe even three blockers. So you're definitely, in most cases, playing some form of 2-3 zone defense, if you will. So you're having the remaining front row players usually not able to assist with middle attacks because they're occurring so quickly. So they're near the sideline covering their area in case of any block touches. Our libero covering the left sideline behind the attack line and attempting to assist with covering the middle of the floor. Our back row setter covering the right side line behind the attack line, and she may have to assist with covering the middle of the floor. And our remaining back row player covering the middle of the floor and any area of ground behind our libero and back row setter. Defending back row attacks. This particular play has us defending a D back row attack. In my opinion, back row attacks are the most difficult attacks to defend. Again, we're defining our defense of defending an attack as a basketball zone offense. And normally, with back row attacks, similar to middle attacks, you have a one-on-one matchup between the attacker and the blocker. So you're doing some variation of a 2-3 zone if you're thinking about basketball analogies. So we have our front row players, one blocker, and the remaining of the front row players will be covering the area on their respective sidelines in this play. Our liberos covering the left sideline in this play, along with the middle of the floor, in front, and just behind the attack line. Our back row setter is covering the area near the right sideline, just behind the attack line. And our remaining back row player is covering the middle of the floor behind the libero and the setter in any areas not covered by our libero and our back row setter. In this play, we're defending the most common back row attack called a pipe or a bick. The D attack is the back row attack from the right side of the floor near the right sideline. A pipe or a bick is a back row attack from the middle of the floor. Again, we're defining our defense prior to attack as a basketball zone offense. And just like all middle attacks, a pipe or a bick has one-on-one matchup between the attacker and the blocker. So we're in a potential basketball, if you will, 2-3 zone defense. Here are our front row players. Normally, only one blocker is able to defend a back row attack. So we potentially have two other front row players defending. We have our libero covering the attack line and the left side of the floor as well as the middle of the floor. We have our back row setter covering the right sideline behind the attack line and also ready to assist covering the middle of the floor just in front of the attack line. And we have our remaining back row player having to cover a lot of ground behind the libero and the back row setter as well as assisting covering the middle of the floor. Defending setter attacks. In this play, we see the most common front row setter attack called a setter dump. When executed properly, setter attacks can be very difficult to defend because our setters, most of the time, even when they're front row, are typically going to set as opposed to attack. So again, we have our defense prior to an attack as a basketball zone defense. The difference is our defense is normally not expecting an attack on hit two from our setters. So we have front row players, potentially one blocker if they're anticipating this setter attack. Our libero defending the left side of the floor behind the attack line along the left sideline. Our back row setter defending the right side of the floor just behind the attack line, as well as being ready to assist the libero with defending the middle of the floor behind the attack line. And the remaining back row player having to cover all area behind our setter and libero, as well as any sideline or corner action. Setter attacks are tough because they always aim for the middle of the floor, somewhere near the attack line. So let's talk about the game plan with regard to volleyball defense.
Great balance for Louisville. Looper with 6 kills, DeBeer with 6, Robbins has 6, Maldonado Diaz with 5, Kong with 5, really spreading the wealth. DeBeer calls for it. Looper for Kong. Rome for delay.
Some good block touches here by Louisville's block to make it easy on the defense.
Maldonado Diaz gets it in.
We're going to look at this rally so we can understand the game plan behind teams and their defense. So if the block by our front row players does not end the rally, our defense does not want our back row setter to touch the volleyball on the first hit. They want our setter to be able to get somewhere near the middle of the floor for the second ball so that she has all 5 options available to her for potential attacks, and the 6th option is attacked by our setter herself. So here, our front row player, who is a non-setter, has the first ball for Kentucky. So our defense wants to get our setter somewhere in the middle of the floor so she can set the ball to one of her 5 options or perhaps attack the ball herself. Intent of all volleyball defenses in system is to be able to get somewhere near the middle of the floor in front of the attack line for the second ball to have all options available. If a block again by Louisville does not end this rally, what is the purpose? The defense wants to do anything possible so that our setter does not touch the first ball. They want our setter to get somewhere near the middle of the floor, just in front of the attack line, to be ready to pass the second ball to any of her five options, or perhaps attack the ball herself. So, following the dig by Louisville, we have an attack by Louisville. So, for Kentucky, a non setter gets the first ball, the front row setter gets the second ball. Here's our slide attack by Kentucky. We have a block touch, and our ensuing dig ensures that our back row setter for Louisville will get the second ball. Following our quick attack, our dig by Kentucky libero ensures that our setter gets the second ball to overhand set it for our pending go attack. Excellent block touch and a dig by our front row players ensures that our setter gets the second ball for this pending red attack. And the rally ends, putting the D in defense. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. We hope you gain some valuable knowledge and insight from our training presentation of putting the D in defense. Have a great day, and we hope to see you again real soon.